I grew up in Brooklyn in the Syrian community. Anywhere usually between like 18 to 21, 22 was like when really most of like my friends got married.
Yeah.
When I was a child and certain things happened, and it definitely left me with this imprint that there's something wrong with me, that I'm not acceptable, that I'm dirty, that yeah, my entire life I knew her block. We went to the same schools, and after journeying so far to find it so close to home, and it's the same language, it's the same, we laugh at the same things, so it was really like finding home again.
As you get older, like they tell you, like start settling, start dating outside of your community, and you know what, when you find someone who literally lives down the block from you, there's just an ease and a comfort.
What was difficult is I knew from 17 that I had what's called non-obstructive azoospermia, which was, I needed IVF, and it was a male factor IVF, and
God showed us the way. I spoke to a fertility specialist, and it was just like, okay, I could do this. And he was just like, wait, what? You can do this?
When I knew that was there was something so real and comforting and heartwarming and wholesome with it, and real. And that's what I was looking for. Like I was looking for the real, and she was willing to meet me in the real.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of prayer.
And I also think that like we were both in a position where maybe 2 years before, I don't know if I would have been mature enough or trusted myself enough to get into something like this.
Can you tell us how old you and Mo were when you got married?
Yes, I was 29 and he was 32. And at one point you just have to trust yourself and trust God and go.
Welcome back to another special episode of Stories of Hope. Before we begin, I just want to let you know that this episode contains sensitive content related to abuse. I am so honored to share about Mo and Michelle. This is an episode of a topic that we've never covered before, and yet is so important in our community. What happens when someone experiences abuse and has to navigate healing, has to navigate intimacy, and that new chapter of life that maybe they might be traumatized by. If you relate, then I hope this episode gives you the comfort you've been seeking. We're about to jump into our episode, but first I have a funny question for you. Have you ever attempted to buy a dress and instead found yourself with a case of Moscato? That's what happened to me today. I went on PZ Deals, my favorite app, clicked on Saks to see what sales they have because PZ Deals will let you know. And instead, I got a notification for a flash sale for something else that I love. Wine, a box of wine for an unbeatable price that I've never seen anywhere. And that's what's in my shopping cart right now. And that's what I love about PZ Deals. You let them know what you're looking for and they send it to you. No more wasting time trying to filter out notifications that you don't want, but rather they will send you exactly what you need and then some. Pesach is coming up. There's a lot of money that is probably going to be spent on food, on clothing, on other necessities and essentials. And let me tell you something, right under that flash deal of Moscato, there was 15 rolls of toilet paper. I'm fully stocked, but maybe you're not. So if you're curious and you don't have the app, you are wasting time and your own money. My two favorite things that I love saving, time and money. So download the PZ Deals app because with PZ Deals, you'll just never pay full price again. So you all know I'm a big fan of Raquel Couture, and I'm really excited because my friend is getting married. And in addition to having bridal gowns and wedding gowns, they also have evening dresses. So Raquel Couture caters to anyone. If you're the friend, if you're the bride, if you're the sister or the parent, they are the top industry for bridal wear. They customize, tailor, and have beautiful, unique pieces that are just sitting there, ready for you to try them on. Conveniently located in Brooklyn, New York, and Lakewood, it's just like the best place to go to. And what's super cool is if you mention Stories of Hope, you get 5% off your beautiful piece. So go someplace where quality is not compromised and service is top notch so that you can look as beautiful as you deserve to feel at Raquel Couture. Check them out on Instagram to see their beautiful pieces and check them out in your local city or drive down there. It'll be worth it to find that perfect piece that you've been looking for. So without further ado, there's not much for me to say. I'll let Michelle and Mo say it themselves. Get ready for another special episode of Stories of Hope. Hi, I'm Tzipora Grodko, and this is the Stories of Hope podcast. I'm really excited to have the pleasure to be here today with Morris and Michelle.
Mo.
Oh, thank you.
He's known as Mo.
Oh my God, I made you sound like a
No,
50-year-old
his
man?
family calls him Morris, but he's known by
Welcome to my
everyone
life.
else as Mo.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
There's
Thank you.
Morris, there's Mo, there's Moshe Chaim, but people commonly know me as Mo, but Morris is family.
Okay, thank you, Mo. And what you guys don't actually know is you were also handpicked from God, because this past week I had other interviews scheduled. They got canceled. They were people who didn't live locally. And a lot of people may not know this, but it's extremely challenging to find the right fit for a lot of different reasons. And sometimes people say, I'd prefer if you'd have this sort of couple, or you target this subject or this audience. And I wish it was like a book I could take out from the library. And I said, Hashem, if you want me to do this, then you need to find the next person. And that day, I was meeting with my assistant, and we came up with a new algorithm to try to keep track of our time. And I opened it up, and you were the first thing that I saw. And I think you even said to me, you were like, I was so shocked you got back to me. And it's been hard, Baruch Hashem, to track things. So I just feel like there's a lot of, there's a lot of good spirit here. So I'm really excited. Let's start with you, Michelle. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you grew up, and then we'll go to Mo.
Okay. I grew up in Brooklyn in the Syrian community. Very typical. Went to the same school in high school from kindergarten to 12th grade. Went to seminary in Israel for 6 months, came back, worked in a community school. Just very, very typical. The only thing I will say is that I never really fit into a box. In our community, everyone is like, oh, you're this type or you're this type. And I was always just a little bit more of a floater. And I fit into a couple of different boxes. But yeah.
Okay. And one thing I also want to say is it's so exciting to have you both here, because we have not yet had a Syrian couple.
I wonder why.
So before we start, for all those that are on the edge of their chairs, Michelle, can you tell us how old you and Mo were when you got married?
Yes, I was 29 and he was 32.
And what would you say is the typical age in your class or in your community for people to get married?
Really anywhere between, and now it's a little bit on the higher spectrum, but anywhere usually between 18 to 21, 22 was when really most of my friends got married.
Yeah. And so to be navigating through it at an older age, I would imagine it was just challenging.
Yeah, you know what? I went through, through different groups of friends because I kept all my friends, but it's you had to learn to adapt. Whether going to a wedding or a party, you want a group of friends. So it was once you lose one group, then you sort of find a new group, and then you sort of lose some of those. And then, so it was a lot of navigating.
Yeah. Something you're unprepared for, and then suddenly need to be an expert on. Yeah, I get that. Well, thank you for sharing. Mo, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I was the last of the Mohicans. I grew up in Brooklyn. I went to Magen David, then I went to Flatbush, then I went to Mikdash Malach, a Haredi Sephardi yeshiva. And I was the big kid, I was the fat kid. I really wasn't good at sports. So I definitely didn't fit into a box. I tried to figure out how to get in many, many different ways, and it just never worked. And yeah, and slowly but surely, especially when I got to Israel, it got clear that I needed to figure out my own stuff and do my own work and do my own learnings. And that's when I got into, I guess, the healing spaces, the workshop space, the breath work, the hypnosis, trauma work, EMDR, a plethora of modalities. And at the same time, I got back from Israel and, I was starting to get into the dating scene. a 25-year-old there. And at 30 years old, they give you the option to take you out back. And I said yes, they didn't. And thank God I met so many beautiful, wonderful people on that journey, specifically on the dating scene. And it's a roller coaster. And at a certain point, after a lot of lessons, we found each other, which, it's interesting because it was 15 minutes away. And,
No way.
and
His grandmother lived around the block from my house. His family went to shul on my corner.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my entire life, I knew her block. We went to the same schools, and when they said "Oh, Michelle Batesh," I'm like, who? But yeah, after journeying so far to find it so close to home, and it's the same language, it's the same. We laugh at the same things, so it was really like finding home again. As
you get older, they tell you, start settling, start dating outside of your community, and be a little bit more out of the box. And you know what? When you find someone who literally lives down the block from you, there's just an ease and a comfort that you basically don't have to start at how did you grow up? I know how you grew up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it definitely shows that whoever made those rules of things need to change doesn't know that, I don't know, those rules maybe those rules should not have been made because he was right there.
It's funny because I was once speaking to a rabbi, and he was Syrian and he married a Moroccan, and he's like, and this was at a singles event, and he was like, I don't suggest people marry outside of their community because there's already so much to navigate once you get married. And to start off with such different lifestyles, and now you're trying to blend them, it's so much easier to just start with it, knowing they understand me, I understand them, I know how they grew up. And this was at really a mixed event of all different types of people. So it was so funny to hear that come out of his mouth, but it stuck with me.
It's definitely easier. It's easier to stay close-knit, which I think is part of the struggle in navigating dating. We kind of want to do what feels easier. And sometimes that makes us decide to be more narrow-minded because considering something else could feel but that might take work and might be threatening. And sometimes it might be the best thing for us. So we never really know. But I do appreciate that because it's a completely different culture, different words, different monogam.
Yeah.
We had Pauline and Shlomi here, and Pauline is Syrian and Shlomi's Ashkenaz from Gateshead. So they gave us a little bit of a sneak peek of what that was like. But I know that today we're really here to talk about your story.
Oh.
And Mo, why don't you share with us sort of start from the beginning of your story?
My story. So my story is evolving. But if I could start from the beginning, I was born with a lot of medical issues. My mother had too much amniotic fluid, and they knew I was coming into this world, and it was going to be challenging. So just walking onto this scene, I had this sense that there was something wrong, that there was something off, that there was something wrong with me. And my body just didn't work a certain way. Thank God everything is wonderful now. Everything is good. And Hashem is infinitely kind. And while carrying that, at a certain point, childhood was challenging. I really didn't know how to make friends. The Sephardi community is amazing, and it's very, very close-knit. And if you see yourself as different, or if I was committed to seeing myself as different, I really didn't see how I was able to fit in. It really manifested when I was a child, and certain things happened, and I was abused for a while, and it definitely left its mark, and it definitely left me with this imprint that there's something wrong with me, that I'm not acceptable, that I'm dirty, that there's something off. And it wound up showing up. And if that's the internal reality, it's going to keep on reverberating itself in how I saw reality and the things I was attracting and the friends I was making or wasn't making. So I tried really, 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 really hard. And it was exhausting for a very long time. Thank God In high school, things really started to pivot. Things really changed when I hit Israel, where it got really apparent really quickly that I needed to figure out my stuff. And that's when I really started, I guess, seeing what's possible, being exposed to what trauma work is, what a fragmentation of self is, what EMDR is, which is a godsend. And I really immersed in it. I immersed in trying to find my own wholeness and find my own way back home and finding community on that way. And at the same time, there's that deep dark. There's that deep dark where I was and am sometimes still fiercely committed to, I guess, the dark side of life. And for me, especially coming onto something like this, it's like, how do I stick a pin in it? And how do I step into that vulnerability? Because if I'm really committed to my dark, then that's going to be the glasses that I see the world. Mm-hmm. That's going to be the glasses that I see looking back at me in the mirror. That whenever and that showed up on the dating scene left, right, and center. So compound like a poor social self with a wounded sexual self, really not knowing what healthy masculinity is, what intimacy is, what sexuality really can mean or does mean. And I was also really, really, really trying my best. Now, I knew I wasn't alone because I met a lot of people. So I met a lot of hurt people. You know, thank God everybody carries their own version of hell. And I had mine. So I started dating, and it was what was difficult is I knew from 17 that I had what's called non-obstructive azoospermia, which was I needed IVF. And it was a male factor IVF. And you know, when people hear IVF, they think like, oh, it's a female-centered infertility. When it's a guy thing, in my head, like all these different types of bells go off. Mm. And from like the second girl I was dating, I come back from Peru after feeling like I'm accepting myself and seeing myself and feeling okay. They're like, oh, you have this, you're going to have to share it. Mm. I was like, what? So I guess a whole new way of learning how to accept myself or learning how to reject myself started to manifest. And it was a grueling process. And there was a lot of friends. There was a lot of meaning. There was a lot of healing. And then at a certain point, there was a certain decision of, I'm going to stop rejecting myself, and I stopped rejecting myself. And it was really at that moment where it created that opening for something new, for something that's really from my own backyard, from a place where I was committed to not belong to, because I'd never felt like I was safe or I belonged to it. So, and she was willing to try. And each piece that I would bring, whatever shard was on that piece, she showed me that it's possible to hold it, to hold it with just a little bit more kindness, a little bit more love, and that there's something precious here, and something precious that I was committed to forgetting for a very, very long time. And she reminds me, and we remind each other. So I know it sounds like a great promo, but that's so much.
It's so much, and I just want to appreciate how courageous it is of you to come on the podcast and share. I know there's organizations like Amudim that are busting at the seams because of the calls they get of people who have experienced molestation, abuse, something that is completely violating. And I think someone that may be in your position, that was in your position, that's hearing this, that isn't on the other side yet, can know that there is hope and can get so much comfort at a place where maybe they never thought comfort would ever be an option again. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your deepest part of yourself with all of us, knowing how much beauty it can bring. And I want to pause you here and turn to Michelle and ask her, as you were, you're trying to navigate dating, you're going out with people, you finally meet Moe, you start to learn about Moe, and he shares this very intimate part of himself. What was that like for you?
So it was in stages. It's funny. He was like so quick to bring up the infertility, and obviously, like the other things took more time. In regards to the infertility, it was pretty early on.
Like 5 dates in.
5 dates in. We were having a lot of fun. I mean, I was having a lot of fun.
It was fun.
It was fun. Like, and
we were both tired. We did the merry-go-round thing. So it's like,
yeah, it was like they're trying and the dating. And after like having a good first and second date, you're just like, I'm just going to enjoy myself until reality hits. And the way he brought it up, he was like ready for the rejection. But happens to be my sister went through infertility. She was living with us at the time. She was going through IVF. So I saw firsthand like really what it entailed. The only thing I could say is like God showed us the way, or showed me the way. I spoke to a fertility specialist. Like I just tried to get like all my ducks in a row, and it was just like, okay, I could do this. And he was just like, wait, what? You can do this? And he was just waiting for I remember texting him, I think it was like Thanksgiving. I was like, okay, could you pick me up for my sister? Let's talk. And he was like ready for me to break up with him. I'm like,
it was the day after. All right, I told
Scariest
her at
words are "let's talk." Ooh.
No, it was more like pick me up though.
Yeah.
And
I remember. I just told her on a Wednesday, and then Thursday night she's like, "Oh, can we talk?" Now every hoop amount. Yeah. Anyways, I was driving and picking her up to. She was going to break up with me. So anyway, I was very prepared.
Yeah, and as like had that happened in the past, where you had dated someone, and share this information.
Yeah. I had the people that were able to hold it. I had the people that were not able to hold it. So like I was kind of ready for anything. I was not ready for her to say yes. Anything except for her saying yes.
Wow.
No, but I think it was my mindset at the time too. Like I was going through a very big like mindset change, and I was trying to be very much like, God's leading me in this path for a reason, and I'm not marrying him tomorrow, like, but I'm going to trust the process. Like, let's see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is part of it, let's continue to see where it goes. Again, it was only date 5. So I don't know. I guess it was a lot of trust. It was a lot of trust and letting go, and yeah.
So I think at a certain point, I looked at her and I was genuinely curious, like, why would you sign up for this? I was like, you're good, you're young, like you got your ducks in a row, clearly, because I don't. But like, why would you knowingly choose this? Because it's needles, it's surgery. Like I had to have surgery with it, and she looked at me.
I have a fear of needles, also huge fear till today.
Oh wow!
So I don't know what I was thinking.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
And then she looked at me and she said, well, God. And I look at her, and there's a certain knowing where both of us believe in the same Hashem, and the same one that brings us to these moments where we get to choose. And it was extremely heartwarming, because I knew that whoever I was going to wind up with, who was going to be the children of the mother of my children, or a child with my children, is going to believe that, and going to need to give that over. And when I knew that was there was something so real and comforting and heartwarming and wholesome with it, and real. And like, that's what I was looking for. Like I was looking for the real, and she was willing to meet me in the real.
Yeah. I guess my question is, if someone has something and they're so scared to share it while dating because their fear of rejection, would you say that if the person accepts them with their fears, that just highlights that this is the right person? And if they reject them, or they feel like you said they can't hold space, then even though there's loss, they're not the right person.
So it's important, if you want the real answer.
Always.
The real answer is it's important not to have a codependent relationship with acceptance. It's important to realize that sometimes when we're so used to rejecting ourselves, we're used to the other person filling that hole. It's not my wife's job to fill that hole for me. It could be my wife's role for her to remind me that, hey, what you're looking for me to fill is yours to fill. I could hold space for you while you learn to fill it for yourself. But yeah, like that, that's your work. That's self-acceptance. And so long, and I've had people ask me this question, like, should I tell the woman I'm dating the deep dark? I'm like, not if you're waiting. If it's for the relationship, it's for the relationship. It's for you to feel like you're finally accepted.
Right.
Then it's for you to feel like you're finally accepted. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think that there's a level of consciousness and there's a level of awareness and maturity, and it's not the other person's job to make me whole as much as it's my opportunity to show up with my own sense of wholeness and to grow in that wholeness together as a couple and as a unit.
Yeah, that is so deep in all relationships, to be able to take care of our own insecurities and not seek that acceptance and fulfillment from others, ultimately leading to any form of codependency. It doesn't even have to, I think when people think of codependency, they think of it in a very intense way, but it can be happening so passively, so socially, to the point where I welcome everyone to consider what you shared. And where am I relying on others for that self-acceptance, self-gratification? Really, really powerful. And it also sounds like it was crazy hashgacha, that you were in a position where you saw firsthand what IVF treatment looked like.
Yeah, like I think even you and your mom were both shocked.
We bugged out.
We bugged out. I was just like, okay, so I spoke to a fertility specialist the next morning. And I mean, she also, I will say, like, my sister was very close to this doctor, and she was giving me like miracle stories. She was like, I had someone at the exact same situation and they got pregnant naturally here and this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess it's not as scary if you're seeing it like all the time.
Yeah.
Which again, I think is God wanted me to see what I needed to see. A couple of months like before we met, I was very into meditation. I was meditating like 40 minutes a day. I didn't know it was my Hebrew birthday. I was in the middle of like this meditation, and my grandfather came to me with like these souls, and like I understood they were my kids.
Whoa.
So I know I sound like a weirdo saying this. That's why I'm saying
like a good
cut
Sparty.
It out. I'm so not like that usually. That's why it's funny. And so it's like the first thing I thought of, like when he said that, was like, but I know I'm going to have kids.
Wow.
So I still don't know what that was. Nothing. I never experienced anything like that again. So like, I don't know. I guess it was just in my head. Like, I know whatever we go through, we're going to have kids.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
That's really beautiful. I feel like it's beautiful to see our lives from a thread that everything's connected.
Yes, definitely. And I also think that like we were both in a position where maybe 2 years before, I don't know if I would have been mature enough or trusted myself enough to get into something like this. And I mean, you've been doing work since you were 18. This was like 12 years in. So like we were settled in ourselves enough to say when we're scared and say that we're unsure, but also like trust ourselves to do it together.
Yeah.
Which I can't say before without putting in that work and like really becoming vulnerable with myself, if I was going to be able to be as vulnerable with him.
Yeah. Wow. And speaking of work, what did that work look like for you as someone that was navigating dating, going through abuse? I would imagine that to get to a place of everything you described, that healthy acceptance of trying to fight off the deep, dark places that are so scary that sometimes naturally someone might feel left behind in, what did that work look like?
That looked like trying. That looked like failing. That looked like holding space for myself. That looked like a lot of breath work. That looked like having really, really good people in my life remind me that I'm worthy. It consisted of forgetting. It consisted of not stopping. It consisted of a lot of prayer, and it consisted of leaving. But even when I left, I never went that far. So yeah, I went searching for my more. I went searching for myself. Just because somebody has a fragment sense of self, they're carrying those fragments with them. So whether it was from a perspective of trauma work, whether it was CPTSD, it's just like I consistently was seeing my fragmented self reflected back at me from reality. So I was really, really good at holding other people's brokenness, and good at like holding mine. But there was a certain commitment to my own pain and commitment to my own suffering that I needed to really unlearn. It was a coach of mine whose name is Mordechai Sadeh from Israel. He's probably the first one that told me the words, you have to put boundaries around your pain, because I could be really, really skilled, but like I was also a drama queen, and I loved attention because, I wanted to be seen. And then starts the question, well, do I want attention? Do I want to be seen? Or is there something worthy of giving here? So it's a question that I dance with constantly and consistently. And even coming here, I had to ask the right people, like, well, does it make sense for me to come here? Is there something to give? Is this what Hashem wants of me? Because you learn how to rub your story against reality and see, well, what does make sense? What does feel good? What is a little bit more wholesome and caring? And what does my yes look like or feel like? So it wasn't until, frankly, that like I did a lot of that legwork, and then I come to Michelle, and she had this willingness to try. And I don't know if it's because I had done my work. I don't know if it's because it was just the perfect time, or because when there's a willingness coming from home, it sings to the home that's inside.
But you wanted to say no.
I was dying to say no.
Say no to her.
Yeah, I was looking. And like I was getting yelled at. Like if there is no, then don't say no. But I was so deathly afraid to be hurt again. Not because other people hurt me. I hurt myself as well. And I was scared. I was scared of the next step. I was scared of the vulnerability. I'll talk to 100 men about stepping into their power and the courage and taking their next step. But there were certain places in my life where for me to accept my vulnerability and trust myself was devastatingly scary. And learning how to do that and learning what's possible, and again, slowly, with a lot of help, with a lot of siyata d'shmaya, with a lot of up and down. And then I find myself where, okay, like I get to make the choice. I really get to make the choice. And then all of a sudden there's someone else that's there holding space for that choice. And that's something that I learned how to feel a little bit more comfortable in. And it stinks because sometimes she can't compete with the way with my own head noise. It's a tough competition, but when I kind of lay down my sword and I learn how to rest inside of my own self and create space to be that person and that lover and that person that's really willing to listen and be there, there's a lot of beautiful shalom and peace and growth and laughter and dancing, and we see it in our daughter. Like thank God, everything's wonderful. Oh,
you have a daughter? What's her name?
Esther.
Hi, Esther.
Yeah. The kid's nuts, but it's where we get to arrive. It's where we get to here. Like this is what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And you said, I don't know why she was willing, and if it's okay, I want to turn to Michelle and ask you, when you heard about this part of Mo's life, what were your thoughts?
I can't say I wasn't afraid. Definitely was afraid, because it's an unknown. You don't know how it's going to manifest in the relationship and once you're married, and as much reassurance as you can get. I did. I spoke to his coach and therapist, and I spoke to my own, and I definitely gave myself time to, I almost felt guilty trying to take that time though. It was like, because it almost played into, but is there something wrong with me that I have, like with him? Like, I didn't want him to think like, oh, I'm trying to make the decision if you're worth it or not. It was more, can I handle it? And that, I think I felt more guilty about that than anything else. Like, I think we had so many conversations about that.
Yeah, you kept on saying sorry for taking your time. And I was like, no, take your time.
I just want to highlight what you said because I think it's so profound. It wasn't a question of, is he good enough for me? It was a question of, am I the right person who could accept all this part of him?
Correct, because I have my own insecurities around like relationships and whatever it is. And it was like, am I capable of holding this? And if problems like do come up once we get married, what would I do? Like, how would I handle it? And again, at one point, a lot of truth. I think when we spoke it out at length, like on the phone, we were like trying to, or I was trying to hold back, but like I couldn't help myself just speaking to him. So we would speak for like 2-3 hours at a time on the phone. I was like, what? And after a while, it's like, okay, what am I doing? I basically made my decision already. And
those were really good conversations.
They were great conversations. So it's like, if you were, like, I was trying to take space for myself, but I didn't want to stay away from him. So like at the end of the day, what does that show you?
Yeah.
And at one point you just have to trust yourself and trust God and go.
We'll be right back to our episode, but first, you have to check out Pizza Biza, making fresh hot pizzas on the spot by their professional chefs, indoor or outdoor in their pizza ovens, meat or dairy, plus full catering around the tri-state area and Florida. Specializing in events with several hundred people with no lines. You heard right. Full menu. You have to check them out on Instagram at Pizza Biza and visit them at pizzabiza.com. Pizza's my favorite food, so please invite me, Pizza Biza, on Instagram and check them out at pizzabiza.com. These are the people you want to call. Pizza Biza, I'll see you at my next event. If you've ever wanted something more than anything in the world, then you've probably tried a segula or two. And if you're anything like me, then you've been dejected and disappointed when it seems like it didn't work. And that's why I love this organization called Better Than a Segula. Like their name, we learn on Simchas Torah, Ein Segula Ketorah. There is no better segula than Torah study. What this organization does is they have a group of Torah scholars that will learn something on your behalf in the zechus of what you want. And even better, the entire process is personalized. So they can study a certain daf in the Gemara for 40 days, whatever you want, whatever speaks to your heart, whatever you connect to, you can let them know. So if this is something that you would find supportive, inspiring, and encouraging, you can contact them by either clicking the show notes below or take out your phone and call them at 732-364-7029. That's betterthanasegula.org, Better Than a Segula, an organization that's there to support you in the way that they know how to and in the way that they can.
Chazal say that, en kedushin b'li tigra. There's got to be a thing. There's got to be something to test the couple. Like in order to really bring this together, there's going to need to be some dissonance in order to figure out, well, does this stick? And we found ours quick. And the way I looked at it is we were really trying to work it out. When I spoke to someone while we were in that, like, okay, you take your time and I'll take my time, I was trying to figure out like where I was. So I went to a friend of mine who was a dayan actually in Gittin. So it's like, so he knows his stuff. He was by my wedding. I trust this man with like just tell me when I'm crazy because it's good to have people like that. And he said, look, you have such a deep sense of vulnerability that the only way you are going to trust a person to share your life with is if you throw everything at it. So you could do it in a, a volatile, weird, dysfunctional way. I'm not saying I'm always functional, or you can do it in a graceful way, in a way where like, here, I really want to be in, and like, this is me. This is me. And if like, if you're in, I'm in, and I'm in if you're in, but this is me. And I inherently always knew that I would need to share all of me because I was able to appreciate duality from when I was very young because of what I went through. I knew I was going to, I knew I wanted to trust it. And I was scared because I believed that I was never going to be accepted for my stuff.
Wow.
So to come into it and share it, and then her accepting was probably even more frightening and terrifying than her not accepting. So
because it was so foreign.
It still is.
Wow.
It still is, in a beautiful, wonderful, precious way.
Yeah.
It's funny, like he even asked me now, like, we're coming on here, why do you want to be involved in this? Like, you don't have to do this. And I do have to do this, I feel like for him, I have to do this. For everyone else, I need to do this, because if not, then who? And like, so much of it is like, I keep trying to tell him, like, you always thought yourself as the outcast and this person who didn't belong. But everyone I spoke to, and he brought this up, like, I mentioned it. When did I mention it?
A couple of weeks ago.
A couple of weeks ago. Like, people looking back at him from elementary school and high school, it's like, oh, he was the one in the plays, and he was out there, and he was this. No one looked at him as weird. He looked at himself as weird. So if anybody else feels like that, we're all weird. We probably all think we're weird. So like, to just treat this as an experience and something not normal, but normal.
Yeah.
And that's like, I just felt like it was very important.
Wow. Well, I think you're both extraordinarily brave. And I love what you said, if not us, who? Because we don't know what our tikkun is. We don't know what power we can have. And I always say, like, doing great things isn't comfortable. It's not convenient. And I know there are so many people who are in a place where they're not, it doesn't look like this. It may look very different, very much not hopeful. And the fact that you chose to be that person, the nachshon, that first person who's going to step forward and share, because you know of the potential. I just have like so much respect for both of you. I kind of want to be old friends, even though this is our first time connecting. And I just appreciate it. I just appreciate it. I know that our listeners are probably also thinking like, wow, this is now something that we talk about. This is now something we know more of. And because of that, we can create more change, which is what we always want. And I want to ask you, Mo, what was it like before you shared this with Michelle?
So she asked me on the way here, Michelle asked me on the way here, if you would have seen this when you were 30, what would you have thought? I'm like, I wouldn't believe it. I would throw everything I can at it just to break this image because it doesn't make sense. So I was really, I just didn't see it. I didn't have the capacity to see it. I thought I would have to keep on hiding. I thought that that's how I would live my life, by compartmentalizing my vulnerability. There's a vulnerability I reject, and then there's a vulnerability I accept, and then there's a vulnerability that's, palatable. And apparently there are things I could, now I could share anything on camera. But so I was very selective in who I let in and how I let in. Yeah, so I remember those single nights. I remember those single lonely nights, thinking that it was never going to happen, and wanting that relationship and yearning for that relationship. And really the same way, think of a little boy in school not knowing how to make friends, not knowing how it's going to happen. I'm like, if you want it, it's your world. It's your world. Make it happen.
Not knowing you'd have a cute little Esther beyond your wildest dreams.
So it's funny because we're good Svardim and I'm a good meditator. Like I knew something was going to happen. I knew she was coming. I knew that life was going to start when she would come. But how? Sometimes we get really wrapped up in that detail and the how. But once I was, it sounds, nice and philosophical, but once I was clear on the why, and the why or the realizing that, yes, there is something here. I have something to offer to the world. And it's not just a fluke that, people like to listen to me. And it's not just a fluke that I know what I'm talking about when I know what I'm talking about. It's not just a fluke that, I understand what I understand. And Hashem has graced me with an understanding of Torah and what I'm able to know about myself. And it's not just a fluke. It's actually bedafka, that the world was created just for me to be in it and live in it and give to it and be nurtured by it. So it's weird. I never actually did that whole role before, but it's a great place to be. You asked me 5 years ago, you asked me 2 years ago, was this possible? I would have called you crazy just because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense like a guy like me who doubted myself the way I did, who would be happy with the way life looks. And I couldn't have it any other way. And sometimes, we look at each other and would you do it again? I'm like, yeah, in a heartbeat.
Wow.
But I also will say a lot of the things you make so big when you're dating, you had a dating coach tell you once, at the end of the day, you're just going to be talking about diapers and crying and
formula.
And formula.
So diapers and formula. That's what she said.
So at the end of the day, even with the fertility stuff, it was so big to him. And we could turn around and say oh, that happened? No, now it's just part of our story. And I think the biggest takeaway is you put all this pressure on what life is going to be like once you find that person, and how is it going to work out this way? And then once it does and it happens and you're over that stage, not that it's not a big deal. Of course it's a big deal. It's part of your story, but it's not the highlight of your story anymore. Right. Life does go on, and the day-to-day ends up looking like everybody else's day-to-day.
Yeah. And I wonder if we were able to know that, if I think we sort of put ourselves in that narrow-minded perspective where we think this is my issue, and then there's going to be life and my issue trailing along. And there's life, and there's a lot of things a part of it, and that's one piece.
But even being single, you think it's oh, I'm going to get married and it's going to be this big happily ever after. It's no, then you still have real life tomorrow. This is just the next chapter.
Right. Yeah.
So it's I still tell my single friends, the minute you get married and the minute you have a baby, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to miss that time you can sleep in. You can miss that time where you can just go and get a manicure. And I used to book vacations on a whim, and it's I missed that. Mm-hmm. So no matter what age you get married and whatever you went through, it's you're still, once it happens, you're going to be like everyone else. So people make this big deal out of everything, and life does just go on.
Yeah, because also some stages are a pathway of acceptance. It's almost what do we call it? Something of virtue. I forgot the word, but acceptance. You're accepted into that new stage, so to speak. And so,
but you're always going to be behind.
Right.
You're always going to be behind.
There's always.
It's my friends are on babies 4, 5, and 6, and I'm on 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
I know. And there's no behind.
There's no behind. Exactly.
There's no behind. Everyone's on their own timeline. If we could honor our timeline, then, oh my goodness, wouldn't you agree, would eliminate the pressure and the rush. There'd still be a lot of loneliness. There still might be loss because we want what we want. But without that pressure, it's a whole different life.
So I think that for me, it turns out it was always about control. I think it needed to look a certain way. No, it needed to look a certain way. She needed to understand me in that deep way that I think she's able to understand the person that set us up. Happens to be he's my second cousin. Like Sweetie Pie have
and he was
a
my
guy.
life coach.
He was her life
Friend,
coach.
life coach.
And he's like, you'd really like her. She's an awesome girl. I'm like, okay. So like, can you tell me anything? Like she meditates. I'm like, okay.
For some people, it's cars. For some people, it's money. For you, you're like meditation.
For Mo,
yes.
it's meditation. Like that's just, that's the entry pass.
I got he was tall.
So I was going to say no. But he had already showed the picture to my mother and to my brother, and like, oh, okay, fine. So, but before that, there was a lot of control. I'm thinking it needs to look a certain way, it needs to fit a certain way. We've created these frames of reference of how life is supposed to go, and even if you're broken, it's just going to add more color into whatever frame that you think it's going to be. Life doesn't work that way, and who can I be if I'm really going to, I guess, expand my frame of reference? And like that picture frame in real life gets broken.
Yeah.
In real life, it gets broken, and there's the diapers, and then there's the laundry, and then there's, wait, what did you say? and it gets better. It really does. It really does. And I was in it for 9 years. You were in it for a while, that whole dating thing.
Yeah. And what would you tell someone who has also been abused and cannot imagine a life where they'll feel loved, they'll start a family?
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. There's nothing that I could say that will... Sometimes it's not words. Sometimes it's just someone sitting next to you. Sometimes it's just sitting next to you, and until I'm here, and if you want to share something, I'm here. And if you just want to sit in quiet, I'm here. And thanks for letting me sit next to you. And you're a lot more whole than you think. And your worth is so not contingent on what happened to you. And that there's a purity inside of you that if sooner or later you will remember. I promise you could remember who you are, and you could remember what it's like to come back home. And the brokenness, it's real, and it hurts. It does. And you can learn to accept your vulnerability and to trust yourself again, and to let go of what you're able to let go. And God is in that place of surrender. And that's probably going to be the most courageous thing you ever do, is to choose to believe in God again. And I promise you, it's once you make that choice, like just to have that courage to take that step into like, well, just maybe there's more. Maybe there's more. And there is. There very, very much is. There's a whole life in front of you.
Yeah. Being seen is very healing. And for anyone listening who's been in this position, who's been broken and hurt in the worst of ways, I hope you feel a little seen, and you can always reach out. I hope you feel seen. How might someone start that journey? And I don't know if we can answer it on a podcast in a limited amount of time. If they feel so angry and they've distanced themselves from God, how can they start that journey?
Give me a call.
Literally what he does.
It's courage to have that conversation. And sometimes it's a text message. Sometimes it's a voice note, and sometimes it's an email, and sometimes it's just taking that one step out of your comfort zone, waiting for it to happen to you. If you're open, it will. But sometimes it is taking that courageous step into the discomfort. And I mean, I've been at it for 18 years. So whether it's in breathwork or hypnosis, I know that as much as you're determined to believe that there's something wrong with you, I know that there's innocence inside of you. I know that there's a little boy or a little girl who wants love, wants to be held, wants to be accepted. And even though sometimes you are determined that little boy or little girl is hurt beyond repair, I promise you, because I was there and I know, and I really know, that there's something more. That there's something more. And if it's a conversation, if it's just someone to say, I'm angry, or I'm sad, or it hurts, or I feel alone. Human connection is is really underrated sometimes when we're in pain. And sometimes it's I'm not even looking for someone to help the pain stop, but for someone to remind me that it's possible to find some sense of compassion and truth. So yeah, I know it may sound a little bit disjointed, but
not at all.
Yeah.
It sounds from the heart. It sounds from the heart. Thank you.
And time heals. It really does. Time heals. But it takes that, I work mainly with men, it's that decision. Because at a certain point, chances are they're not 8 years old anymore. Chances are they're married. Chances are they're an adult. So they have, yes, I'm talking to the men in the room. They have full permission to be the biggest nevach, biggest hazit case. They could be determined to keep their victim mentality from here to kingdom come. And I will not judge them for it. And they shouldn't be judged for it, because everybody has every right to go through life in whatever way they want to. And part of freedom, part of being a Jew, is to not be satisfied by your own smallness. It's just, it's not in our DNA. Our DNA was more. Our DNA was the sky is the limit, that Hashem is always there. Even when I'm so determined in, Purim is coming, and to dictate life by that inner Amalek, that inner suffix, that inner doubt. And I really just want to cuddle Satan in bed and commit to my own suffering. That's not what a Jew does. It's not what a Jew does. It's not what Hashem wants. That I know. That I know. It's like, if Hashem is real, then salvation is real, then it is what it is. And, but I don't like it because I want to suffer. Yes, I hear that too. And when you're ready, to take just another fresh breath, there's more life. So.
Wow. So what I'm hearing is your experience and your pain is so valid. And when you're ready, there is another option to consider. There is hope for healing.
That's such a softer way of putting it.
I'm just trying to summarize it.
I love it.
I'm just trying to summarize it. And what might you say, and we're going to get to you, Michelle, and what might be a way for someone to support someone who's navigating through that? And that's why I was struggling to go back to you, because you are supporting Mo throughout the process.
I have no idea. Everybody's different.
And I think even, I'm going to interrupt, even with the same person, it's evolving. Like sometimes he needs to be smacked in the head and say, hello, get out of your own head. And then sometimes, it's more of a gentle reminder of do you need to talk to someone? Do you need to go hang out with your friends? Do you need time to yourself? Or do you need to talk to me? If you're comfortable, if it's something you want. But I think the support just comes from the non-judgment. I see it. You usually can see as a wife, you can see the fuller picture of where something is coming from, as opposed to just being stuck in that misery or in that darkness. So we've had many conversations, not easy conversations, but conversations about how he's feeling, and even where I guess I see where it's coming from. And for someone to throw that in your face is not easy. So I give you a lot of credit. A lot of the times they're not easy conversations, but a lot of the times it's just gentle, and you have that person to comfort you now. So let them.
So it's not always about, I would just add, thank you. It's not only about the comfort as much as it has an impact on her. My relationship to intimacy, my relationship to myself will have an impact on her. So if I'm carrying my trauma into the house, then there's me and there's her, and then there's the trauma. So it's is there another person living at home? So for many people, it's recognizing of how that is showing up. So for some people, it may be just that listening and that non-judgmentalness, and then the partner will have their own experience of the other partner's trauma. It just will. If they are a part of a whole unit, then there is something there that the unit is meant to be metaken together. I guess the one thing that I would add to it is that you never know. As much as she knows, as much as she really like knows me, and God willing, we will continue to know each other and respect each other and grow in that way. She's never going to live inside of my own head. I'd like her to. I'd love her to know what I'm thinking, and trust me, I'd love to know what she's thinking sometimes. But she's never going to know that. So to really appreciate with a sense of humility that gap, and that sacred gap is where sacred space happens. That's that beauty where it's like, can I trust in that space? Can I listen in that space? Can I accept in that space? So it's really appreciating that gap. So it's not about like, oh, I got it. Oh, you're there again. Or it's coming up in that way. Or I know exactly what to say because I heard that podcast. So like, I should just say the things that they say when, the person comes in with his deep dive. You could do that and see how that turns out. But, there's a sincere humility that, like, as much as I know my wife, I don't know what's going on inside of her own head. I would love to listen to it. I love to learn it. I love to hear it. So it's something, I think, also because we got, I was 32 and she was 29. So we've been around the block and we knew what it was like to not listen. So we spent some time listening. And, when I hear it on podcasts, like, oh yeah, we're doing the work together. Like in my head, like I have this pedestal of, the couples that work on each other, on themselves. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but I know what it's like to show up. I know what it's like to run away. I know what it looks like to hide. And then I also spend my time learning what it's like to come back. So, this whole thing is, well, it's almost like the way I hear it is like, well, do you want to come back this way? Do you want to come back this way? We haven't done it before. Well, do you? Like, do you want to take this turn on the roller coaster?
Yeah. So, it's so gentle. It's so gentle and exploring. Like you said, hopeful. Yeah, it's hopeful. And it's so gentle and humble to be inquisitive instead of assume and be more like, God forbid, admonishing, but like, just like, oh, you should be over it. Oh, you should this, you should that. We spoke about this. It's so gentle. And what do you need? Do you need to text someone? Do you need to call someone? How can I help you? And for anyone who knows someone in this position who thinks they're being helpful by, I don't know, spewing the Gandhi that they think they have when they're not the one who went through the experience, or even if they did, sometimes that could be to a fault because a person might think that their way of coping is the best way for someone else to cope. Asking is always so powerful. What do you need? How can I help? And I think the only way we can do that in a gentle way is if we practice humility, which means I don't know what this person needs and I am suspending all judgment to see what they need and help.
But I will say, like, there are times when you see someone struggling and you want to help them and you don't have, like, you don't know what they need. You really don't know what they need. And it could get frustrating. So I understand when someone is just like, hello. And I can't say I never did that. I definitely did that. Like, but I think now, like, we sort of learned how to have a more genuine conversation. And that did take time. Like, instead of me, like, let's say getting upset or just like letting it build up. And it's like, do you see what you're doing? Like, and then after a while, it's like, no. And before it gets to that point, like, it's more of like just even sometimes like a daily, like, check-in, like, how are you doing? Like, where are you at? Especially when, like, your spouse is going through something. So I think, I mean, as a wife, so I don't know, like, as a friend, but even as a friend, if you know your friend is going through something, even like that gentle, small, what's up? How are you feeling? Where's your head at? Like, those small things can, like, sort of tamp down the big blow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took time to figure that out.
Of course. Anything new takes time. And then even when we think we figured it out, if the new thing evolves, we're starting all over again. And what would you tell someone, we'll bring it back full circle, someone who's Syrian, who's listening to this, who's, at an age where...
What's up?
Yeah, what's up?
Who's listening?
In a place where they feel so stuck and they don't know what to do. They don't feel like things have worked out the way they wanted them to, and they're listening to your episode and they're seeing you and they're feeling like, wow, I want that, but that's her, not me, right? What might you tell them to give them a little bit of hope? Chizuk, right? Did I pronounce it right? Or did I just throw myself on it? Okay.
That was great.
You're like, stick with what you know. Just say chizuk.
Right before I met him, and like the way I met him was, I was like starting to date this guy, and like it sounded like it was meant to be, and like all of a sudden there were like all these red flags, and then like literally in a flip of a coin we were set up, and like it just happened. So there's nothing aside from really praying and working on yourself and having a positive outlook as best as you can. I know it's not easy. Definitely had my fair share of ups and downs. Life can change in an instant, and to stay hopeful, because if not, what else do you have? Like, why do you want to be miserable? Why do you want to feel like sorry for yourself? Live your life, have fun. Don't let marriage stop you, because marriage probably will stop you. You can't do what you can do single, and enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm hearing, and it's actually a little bit of a theme between both of you. Like the dark place, sometimes there's an illusion where we think it's comforting. Sometimes it is comforting because it can validate something we're feeling that we haven't vocalized. And so in a sense, it's validating. But that dark place, it doesn't service us to stay. And so look around and know that there's hope for something better. Is there something else that you would leave us off with, Mo?
For the people back home?
Oh, yeah.
God loves you. Hashem yitbarach tamid ohev oti v'tamid yeh li rak tov. It's good. And even when I'm determined to see everything else other than the good, it's still good. And Hashem has his wonderful organic way of running the world and bringing us back to exactly where we need to be, whether I'm kicking or screaming or not. So, and it's not a secret. Like whoever smells it in the air is like smelling it in the air. So like there's a reason why that song comes out now, and there's a reason why everybody loves it now. It's because we need that reminder. We need to remember, and we need to come back to that sense of authenticity of what makes us up. And one of the things, Brooklyn is an amazing place. Monsey is fantastic. Lakewood, Iraq, Kodesh, Rabbi Say. But we're as much as we're meant to be there and with our families and building our lives, there's something inherent in all of us where we're meant and called for more. So to double down on yourself and be hopeful in yourself, and because the world needs you. If the world didn't need you, you wouldn't be in it. It just didn't. And God is waiting to say amen to his tefillah that he has for you. So live that prayer. Just live that prayer. And God believes in you. So what right do you have to not?
Ooh, what a last minute mic drop. That was beautiful. Well, thank you again for coming in, for enhancing Klal Yisrael, really, with your heart and soul, your deepest, most treasured parts of your life, and sharing it with all of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for watching another special episode of Stories of Hope. Here at Stories of Hope, we're always trying to hit every target demographic, every population, every unspoken discussion, and this was one of them. If you relate to the material, if you found it comforting, if you want to connect to Moe and Michelle, then you can either comment below by letting them know how impactful this episode was to you, or you can send them an email with the contact information that will be listed in the show notes. If there's any other important content that you think we need to talk about that hasn't been featured on our podcast yet, please let us know by reaching out to us at soh@meaningfulminute.org. We are so committed to bringing the conversations forward, to creating the change that we all need. And once again, I am so endlessly grateful to Moe and Michelle for your bravery and courage in joining our podcast to help create the change that we all need to see.